Hello, welcome to LAEDC's Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation's webinar. Today, we are partnered with Concerned Capital. Our topic today is Transition of Ownership, a strategy to save businesses and jobs. My name is Sara Zorabian, and I'm with Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation. To note, this webinar will be recorded. Also, we will be taking questions and answers in our chat as well as in our Q&A. I would like to introduce our director, Barbara Levine. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. And hi, everyone. We know your day is packed. We sincerely appreciate you taking out an hour from your busy day to spend with us and join us for our webinar on transition of ownership, which is legitimately a strategy to save businesses and jobs. This program applies to all types of businesses, and it's very important that we retain and help grow as many businesses as we can here in the greater Los Angeles area. I'm the director of the Business Assistance Program, and I'm happy to be with you today. Next slide, please. So something about the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation. We're a private nonprofit organization, a 501c3, and we were really started in 1981. And it's exciting because our vision has evolved as well as our mission to better meet the needs of the communities. And the Business Assistance Program, and since 1997, we've helped to impact over 260,000 jobs. And it's the employers that do the hiring, but it's up to us to help be a connection to resources and to reach out to businesses and to help in any possible way to help them retain, sustain, and grow businesses and jobs. The Business Assistance Program serves the needs of the small business community throughout the county and especially in underserved areas. And our work has only been enhanced by our mission to collaboratively advance growth and prosperity for all. We continue to identify and outreach to businesses at risk of closure, layoffs, or reducing hours through our program with the City of Los Angeles, Layoff Aversion, the County of Los Angeles, Business Technical Assistance Programs, and assisting manufacturers through our long-standing contract with the California Manufacturing Technology Consulting. Next slide, please. So we specialize in business technical assistance services. Next. And many of the major programs that we're involved with, and we provide county-wide assistance. We do not charge for what we do. It's complimentary consulting, and it's also confidential, as well as this, the list from today's webinar is also confidential. The list will not be shared with anyone outside of the LAEDC or outside of Concerned Capital. So many of the programs that we help to connect, workforce training and workforce development, permitting and streamlining permitting, advising of tax incentives or other programs such as loans and grants, as well as financing resources and access to capital and other opportunities. There are also cost containment strategies, such as looking at workers' comp or your exposure to risk, or what you can do to better market your business to help bring in revenue. And we also offer a series of webinars. Next slide, please. So here's a wonderful graphic we'd like you to remember that the LAEDC's Business Assistance Team is your connection to valuable resources, no cost whatsoever for what we do, and we're here to serve you and help support you and your business. Next slide, please. So one of the new programs that was released in January is the Economic Opportunity Grants Programs, and that's offered through the County of LA as well as through the City of Los Angeles, and that depends on different eligibility requirements. Please contact us after the webinar and we will work with you one-on-one and connect you with many of these programs. Next slide, please. And the wonderful thing about the Economic Opportunity Grant Program, there is an application assistance center, there is technical support, and it's also supported by a series of webinars. And many of the partners include the Small Business Development Center Network, the County of Los Angeles, Lendistry, State of California, and others. So please contact us after the webinar, and we're more than happy to provide more information. Next slide, please. So here's the team. We're happy to serve you. We serve businesses countywide, no matter what a business does, no matter what stage you are in development, we are here to serve you. Next slide, please. So it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce you to Concerned Capital, a social benefit organization. And full disclosure, I've known Bruce and many people on the Concerned Capital team for about 10 years, and we've had some successful projects together. So it's my honor to introduce Bruce, Farah, and Grant, and I'm going to hand it off to Farah. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Hi, everyone. My name is Farah, as Barbara mentioned. Thank you, first of all, for having us. We're happy to join today. I'm joined today by Bruce, our founder and principal of Concerned Capital, and also Grant, who's an associate of Concerned Capital. Today, we're going to walk you through who Concerned Capital is and also how transition of ownership strategies can help save businesses and keep jobs local. Next slide, please. So who even is Concerned Capital? We are a social benefit economic development company. So we have pioneered a transfer of ownership methodology, and it's designed to benefit both people that are looking to buy an existing business and people that are sellers looking to sell their own business. Our entire company's goal is having workers keep their jobs, reducing tax implications for when transitions of ownerships occur, and also helping create wealth in underestimated communities. So I can give a brief background about myself. I have a master's in public administration from the USC Price School of Public Policy. My background is in economic development and also impact investing. And as a first-generation Latina and daughter of immigrants, my parents didn't really have opportunities to create wealth and didn't have really great opportunities for economic stability. So the work that I do in this company and in my role is deeply personal to me. So now I'll pass it on to Grant and Bruce so they can give you all very brief intros.
Thank you so much, Farah. My name is Grant Amen. I also went to the USC Price School of Public Policy, where I got a degree in urban planning. And I love economic development. I think it's so important. I got a chance to spend 2 years living in Argentina and sort of understanding more about economic development there, where I also learned Spanish. And I'm looking forward to this meeting today, and I'll pass it over to Bruce.
Thank you, Grant. I'm Bruce Dobb. I work with this team to deliver services throughout the country. Most of you know me from Valley Economic Development Center, which I was the chief credit officer for about 10 years with VEDC. And I've been in LA since Jerry Brown was governor the first time. And it's home for me for a long time. We're delighted to be here. Thank you, LAEDC.
Thank you. Next slide. So like I mentioned earlier, today we're going to go over several options that exist to transfer ownership. We're going to let you know why selling to people that you may already know is actually a really effective strategy for selling your business. And we're also going to go over a program that we are pioneering alongside the Urban Manufacturing Alliance and Common Future to strengthen community development financial institutions' ability to be stewards of equitable ownership transitions. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Farah. I'll take this one. The retirement of the baby boomer generation is leading to transitions in countless small businesses, which poses a risk to jobs, services, and economic growth. Ownership transition is an economic development issue. Over the next decade, everyone will be headed to the exits at the same time. 2.4 million small businesses employing over 25 million people are at risk. Proper planning is crucial to ensure the continued success of these businesses and preserving of jobs, including succession planning, mentoring new owners, and providing resources to navigate the transition process. Ownership transition is an economic development issue that requires attention and action to support small businesses and the success of our communities. And even though we at Concerned Capital focus a lot on manufacturing, this is something that applies to all businesses, insurance agencies, big box stores, even to beauty supply stores. Thank you. Next slide.
The exit strategy for small business owners is a really complicated one. LA is the largest mid-sized small business market in the nation. And we're also the largest manufacturing center in the nation. LA is known for Hollywood and other things, but really its biggest strength is it's a manufacturing community. There are a lot of obstacles for small business owners who go to sell their business and realize that it's a difficult thing to do. It's not just it's not like selling a house. There's no well-established market. It's hard to connect with the buyers you want to reach. And oftentimes outside buyers, third parties, they don't realize the real strength of your company, your local business. After the Northridge quake, I don't know if many of you online remember that, but in '97, the Northridge quake happened. We were at VDC and all these small business owners wanted to sell. They were ready to retire. They wanted to get out and they couldn't. And some of the reasons are they didn't have a succession plan in place. They hadn't identified the next generation of ownership in their company. And when they look for an exit strategy, they don't really know how to market their company. They don't know how to put its best foot forward and put it for sale. And what we ended up doing is transferring ownership to insiders, to employees, to people who are familiar with the business, friendly competitors. And we'll talk about this a little later. But our slogan really for this whole talk is, if you're thinking of selling your business, guess what? You may already know the best buyer. Thank you. It's fair. Can I hand this back to you for the next slide? Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
There you go. Brand.
Yeah, this one's me. We did want to talk a little bit about private equity. The rise of private equity is starting to threaten small businesses and competition in America. Private equity firms acquire companies to make them more profitable, but often result in job losses, reduced competition, and less investment in research and development. Industry concentration is a major problem as it leads to higher prices for consumers and fewer choices. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the lack of important resources such as baby formula was due to concentration in the industry. To fight against the loss of small businesses, employee ownership is a better alternative to selling to private equity firms. Employee ownership keeps businesses in local communities, ensures jobs remain in those communities, and creates a sense of ownership among employees, leading to increased productivity and innovation. Employee ownership helps to keep America competitive and diverse. Next slide.
All right, this is a case of a company that was run absentee for 3 or 4 years. I can't remember which, but after the owner died, 4 key employees in this picture on the, as you look at it on your far right is the president of our company, Tomas Duran. I hope he's online with us today, but these are the other 4 guys, are the guys that owned the company, that were running the company when the owner died, Pablo and Jesus. These guys had actually been running the company absentee for about 4 years. Their biggest problem that they faced from continuing to stay open was they couldn't buy milk because they didn't have the credit to buy the milk. They had a lot of demand, a lot of sales, but they couldn't buy milk. Barbara, do you remember this deal? I think you introduced us to this. You brought me into this. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do. And
how long did you work with them? How did you decide to bring them to us anyway?
Well, it's an interesting story, and I think many people can relate to this, that we had reached out to the business, because something that we do in business assistance is reach out to businesses periodically, just kind of courtesy calls to hear how they're doing. And granted, this was 2014, 2015. Reached out to the business, no calls back whatsoever. And I even think I got a heads up to help assist this business or give a courtesy call from one of our local partners. And then I might have even dropped by and dropped my business card off. Well, it took about a month or so later, I got a phone call on a Friday evening at about 5:30 from the owner's daughter, the deceased owner's daughter, who said she found my car and she didn't know what to do. That the position was they were cash strapped. They had to pay cash for raw materials. And basically they were on the verge of not knowing what to do. And I was on the phone with her. Remember, it was a Friday night for about an hour and a half, and trying to hear more about the business. What have they done? What have they looked at? And more or less, what I assumed from the business, what I heard was, ever since the father died, no one from the family was really available to really lead the company. And so the company was really being led by managers, but they didn't have banking authority. They didn't have a lot of authority that you have with the executive level. So after spending time with her and referring her to some of our other partners to look at insurance and financing in other areas, they were really not doing well. And then I called Bruce, because Bruce and I have known each other a while. And I said, Bruce, I'm speaking
alone.
business.
Get them alone fast.
I don't know what they're eligible for. Can you please speak with them? And that's how the whole process started. So
Yeah,
thank
but
you, Bruce.
it was an incredible story. It turns out that they self-financed. They got together their resources, pooled their resources, and actually came up with a whole purchase price. But it was just telling them, just because you're workers doesn't mean you can't be owners too. They just had never thought themselves into that role. They needed some encouragement, some organization. We obviously had to structure their credit and that other things. The charm of this was, some of the workers thought that they couldn't own a company because their credit wasn't good enough. But Ariza's credit was excellent. So we showed them that the bank is actually lending to the small business. And the credit of the company is far more important than their individual credit. And that's one of the keys to transferring ownership to employees. People who might not otherwise have the credit to buy a company can do it, especially if they have an old established company. Ariza was the first ethnic cheese company, a Spanish Mexican cheese company in LA. It's formed in like 1973. So it had an incredible history and a lot of very loyal customers. All right. Farrah, back to you. Oh,
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, so these are just some of the issues that can come up when an owner is thinking about selling that can negatively affect the sale of the company. And oftentimes owners don't really realize that these are things that can affect the sale. For example, if a large percentage of your revenue is because you have a couple of really big customers, that can be seen as a red flag for lenders. And then there's also, if your financials are erratic, maybe there's natural lulls in your cycle of production that lenders don't really understand. And so it looks like a red flag, depending on, how competitive is your market. And obviously, being forced to sell is if a retiring owner is sick, or there's a major life event that has come up and they're just forced to sell. That can be a red flag too, because you're not as prepared as if, you had done a succession plan and been intentional and strategic about the path forward to transitioning the ownership of your company. But I also think that it's really important for lenders to be flexible and make an effort to understand the market and the fluctuations of a company and their financials. For example, just because maybe a substantial percentage of your revenue is tied to a couple of customers, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily a red flag. That could be a major longstanding customer like Boeing, for example. So it's important to understand the nuance, and there's not a lot of lenders, that are positioned or, aware enough of all these nuances to understand. But shameless plug, Concerned Capital actually works with lenders that do understand the lender landscape. They get the context. We make sure that they understand it. And then we also help with companies to better strengthen the way that they present their company to position themselves for a successful sale. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with the TA services that I mentioned earlier that we're working with CDFIs to strengthen. Next slide. Thank you.
well, this is another deal that we did There was, it's a company that was in Inglewood when we started working with them, but they were also a lot in the Valley. It was called Box Pack and Ship and Box Brothers. It was the original company. Box Brothers had a retail division, which had stores. A lot of you might be familiar with it, shipped like UPS stores, but it was their own proprietary brand, Box Pack and Ship. Box Brothers. And the company had been around for a long time and was known. They had a division that did wholesale shipping of artwork, large freight, that sort of thing. And they let the company, basically, they sold off what they could, and it closed. And once it closed, two former employees said, hold it, our customers still need our services. We're still very much needed. The warehouse lease had run out. These guys went into South LA, rented a building, and went into business like a week after the wholesale division closed of Box Brothers. They're still doing it today. Ray Gomez and Dan Goodman do a bang up job. They've expanded. They bought a building. They have a lot more employees now, and they've been a very successful company. But they weren't the old Box Brothers that they worked for didn't have time. It had to go out of business so quickly that it didn't have time to correctly market the wholesale division. There's no hard feelings between the employees who took over and the parent. As a matter of fact, one of the new owners is the son of the former partner. So ownership of small businesses is complicated. People think it's simple, but it's not. We're prepared to deal with those complications. We understand the ins and outs of it. And it's something that to do a successful transition, you got to understand how it works. But there's oftentimes the next generation of ownership can take a company to a new level. It just needs to happen. Thanks. New models. Is that our slide? My slide, your slide?
Yeah. So this is Grant and I. So this is just an overview of new models that exist for keeping jobs local. All of these strategies are insider deals. These are people that you know, such as key employees, maybe a manager, a foreman, somebody that understands the intricacies of the business that can continue running it effectively once, the owner transitions out. Obviously, family members and employees is also an insider deal. There's also potential opportunities to transition ownership to another vendor or even a landlord or even a local competitor that is aware of the market and how it works. I remember reading a deal recently where it was an attorney that was somehow involved with, I think maybe helping a tenant that was leasing a commercial space that had a bakery, and the tenant ended up wanting to sell the business and the attorney ended up buying it and running it. So you never know where, these potential avenues can come from, but usually insider deals are the most effective at continuing the company and growing it, as Bruce mentioned.
I want to also just talk about insider focus from the point of view of LAEDC and economic development. Here's the point. Employee ownership's nice, not essential. What's essential is that the business stay local. What's bad is when a business that's perfectly healthy, especially manufacturing, gets moved out of LA because of economic reasons, because of private equity or other reasons. That is what we're trying to work against. All the technical assistance, all the SBA lending, all the economic development groundwork that's done to help a business thrive in LA gets trashed. If the company, when it's become successful or the owner decides to retire, if that company gets moved out of LA, we've all lost. Our strategy is to keep businesses local, whatever it takes, whatever way you have to find a buyer, that's okay. Everybody thinks that employee ownership means ESOPs. It does not. Less than 5% of employee ownership deals are ESOPs. Nor does it mean necessarily co-ops. Co-ops are wonderful. I live in a co-op. I believe in co-ops. It's democratic ownership. It's a very unique kind of structure. It's a little outside of the capitalistic model. That's okay, but very few businesses have the culture that will support a co-op. The most common thing we see is key employees or family members of key employees. Occasionally, we'll see a landlord who would like to take over a business when a owner decides to exit. or when there's non-payment of rent for over a year and a half. Sometimes in desperate situations, landlords want to take over an opportunity. The important point of this presentation is, who are the local insiders that we already know that we can help transition the business to? Okay, next slide. Oh yeah, the advantages of selling to insiders. I guess that's mine fair too. Do you want to give me some help, guys? I mean, I'm going to need some help on this one, but chime in. The first advantage that I see when you sell to insiders that I learned from the Exit Planning Institute when I went to some of their meetings was that the time factor. In other words, you've already identified somebody who you're going to sell to, and you're already beginning the negotiations. You don't have to advertise the business. It saves on delay frequently. The tax consequences are also substantial. When you go to sell a business, most professionals in the industry, exit planners and others, advise to sell it assets only, which means that you get taxed at an ordinary tax rate when you sell assets only. When you sell to insiders, frequently they know the business. They know the ins and outs. They may take over the stock, lock, stock, and barrel, which transforms it from ordinary income to capital gains for you as a seller. So if you can find an insider willing to take over the entire corporate shell and everything it owns, it may have tax advantages for you. Obviously, if you sell to people you already know, employees, your legacy gets preserved. People remember you. Chances are you'll have a more friendly association with them. The biggest single reason to look at insiders, though, that people overlook, most people in the exit planning business or the sale of business overlook, is that when you sell a company as a small businessman, you're frequently asked to participate in the financing. In other words, usually 30% or more you have to take back a note for. They do that for a lot of reasons. Keep you involved with the company, make sure that there's no misrepresentation when you transfer the company. A lot of reasons that they do that. But many owners say to me, I'd much rather extend credit to employees and people I've known for years than to outside third parties I don't have any ties to and I don't know. When you extend credit, you take back a note to an employee or to a vendor or somebody you've done business with for years. You know their assets. You know what outside assets you can ask for as part of your security arrangement. You can make a more secure loan. You also know, how to reach them on weekends in case you need to collect. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for selling to insiders. Basically, it also saves a lot of time, and it does ease transition. Many times we find when you sell a business, you have to spend the next 2 years educating the new owner on how the business operates. When you sell to people that are already running the company, it's a different story. They know what they're doing. And by the way, one of the key features that makes a company saleable is the fact that it can be run without the owner present, that you have long-term employees who understand the business, know how to operate it. That's what all the private equity people look for. That's what the most sophisticated and knowledgeable lenders look for. It's a very important key element. So if that's what makes the business valuable, why not look to them to sell the business to them? It creates a lot of goodwill among your employees when they know it could not, maybe not all of them got to buy it, but at least some of the key managers did. And hopefully they will open ownership up to other employees in the company. I think that's the end of that slide. Those are the advantages. We have one more slide. Oh yeah, case study. Well, this is a case that was done when I was at VDC, and it was a fabulous case. A lot of people may know the Aaron Brothers. Aaron Brothers had an art supply company here in LA for years. They still do, I think. I think there's still Aaron Brothers locations. But anyway, they used to manufacture their own frames under the name Aaron Brothers. And when the owners, Chuck Aaron, I met, he was still alive. The other owner was deceased, but he was in his 80s. And he had the lady in the photograph, Noemi Prada, running the company for like 15 years. And he was he knew he could sell the real estate that the company was on for a lot of money, but he didn't know what to do with the business. He didn't really have the time to make the real estate deal work. He didn't have the time. So we at VDC pointed out to him, maybe Noemi can buy I mean, we told him that Noemi could maybe buy the business, and she wanted to. She had contacted us early on. She really wanted to buy it. He was shocked. Oh no, you can't sell to Noemi. It was like he was an old enough guy that the idea of a woman running and owning a company, I think it was a little bit different for him. But times have changed, and sure enough, she's been fabulously successful. She took it over. It was on the front page of the Daily News out in the Valley. It's been a big success story. She's a very hardworking lady who deserves all the credit for this deal. But we had to, we got involved, we had to actually relocate the business. And that involved DWP, LAEDC. It was a major effort, but it showed things can happen if it's in the public purpose. And if you're going to save jobs, things that you normally wouldn't expect to happen can happen. So it's kind of a fairy tale come true in a lot of ways, but it went and worked, it made sense, and we had a very successful transaction. Okay, is there one more slide? Do we have anything else?
We do. So as you can tell, we at Concerned Capital are very interested in economic development. We care a lot about the growth of Los Angeles and supporting good jobs and competition. And we think we have something special here, you know. If you have any questions about any of these matters, Concerned Capital provides a lot of the services we've been talking about through a program called TEAM, which stands for Tools for Equitable Acquisition of Manufacturers. TEAM is one example of a national initiative to help transfer companies to local ownership. Concerned Capital has been commissioned to provide the following free services from TEAM to small businesses in need of transition assistance. The first is obviously just questions and answers, but of course, free continuity plans, valuation services, business projections necessary to attract new ownership, and assisting buyers with acquisition financing through 2 participating CDFIs. And I think Bruce wants to say a little about our this last bullet point here.
Well, the CDFIs are community development financial institutions, which are non-depository banks. Basically, they lend money, but they're chartered by the Treasury. They don't take deposits. Pacific Coast Regional's been here forever in mid-Wilshire, and I've done business with them for 30 years. And CDC Small Business Finance is another long-term lender that started in San Diego under a guy named Art Goodman, and they've since grown and become national in scope, but their focus is small business. And the reason why we like CDFIs, and I want to emphasize this, is they do something for you as a small business owner that nobody else can do. They help you increase the value of your company. The favorite pitch for brokers and private equity people right now is what I call a 2-step. They say to you, your business isn't worth what you want it to be today, Mr. Owner, but if you want 7 million for it and it's worth 5 million today, we'll get it up to 7 million if you listen to us. We're private equity. We'll train your key employees. We'll make them work harder. We'll show them how to increase the value. We'll improve your margins. And then once we'll own 30% of it initially, and then we'll resell it 2 years. And on the resale, you'll make a lot more money. You'll make some money when we buy it from you, and you'll make a lot more when we resell it again, the 2-step. Well, in the meantime, they make a ton of money as private equity investors in 2-stepping you to death. The CDFI community will help you do the 2-step without additional partners. They'll help you train your employees, help you increase the value of your company. If that's your goal, to sell it eventually, as long as you're selling it locally, the CDFIs don't care if it's the employees, if it's a competitor, who it is, as long as you're going to keep the jobs in the community, CDFI will work with you to increase the value of your company so that you can get the amount that you need to retire. And that's a unique advantage that only CDFIs offer. Other lenders do not offer those kind of services. CDFIs get Treasury money from the federal government specifically for technical assistance. The 2 that we're working with in our demonstration program have long track records. They do SBA lending, they do acquisition lending, and we'll be happy to introduce you to both of them. Thank you. Okay, next slide. Questions and answers. Barbara, how do you want to handle this?
I think we're ready. Set a next slide, please. Okay, now it's your turn. I know there are several questions in the question and answers, and we're all ready to field the questions and give you the best answers we know.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much, Concerned Capital. Again, there were some questions in the Q&A about if this is going to be recorded. Yes, we are recording it. And let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and down the list of questions. Let's see. Question. I believe, Bruce, this is for you. What's co-ops?
Co-op, cooperatives. Sorry about that. I worked for the National Bank of Cooperatives years ago. Cooperative ownership is a democratic means of ownership where all the owners have a say in the management, not necessarily the governance. When you talk about co-ops, you need to distinguish between day-to-day management of the company and governance. And actually the way it works is the co-op members have a say in the governance of the company, but not every member has a vote on the day-to-day management. Day-to-day management stays the same often in a co-op conversion. To get this straight, I mean, co-ops are, think of them like C corporations or think of them like sole proprietorships. It's another form of ownership. The co-op structure, though, cooperative has a structure where the board is elected by the people who are owners of the company, and they set the management structure for the company. And the management usually doesn't change that radically once it converts to a co-op. The big advantage of a co-op is profit sharing. There's usually distribution of profits in a cooperative. There could be an ESOPs as well. It depends on how they're governed, but co-ops are something that are very common in certain parts of the country, especially in Wisconsin and the Midwest. They have a culture of co-op. Here in Berkeley, we see it. We don't see it a lot in manufacturing, but we're starting to see more and more of it. We encourage cooperatives. We think that that's a great thing, but it's not the only way to go. And many times, key managers will take over a company, run it for years, and then decide to gradually take in more and more employees so that everybody in the company has an opportunity to own it. Because a company is a cooperative doesn't mean that everybody must be a member of the co-op, but generally it has to be a majority or greater. About 75% have to be members of the cooperative. I hope that
Wonderful.
answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Bruce. I think we have another question for you. If you are planning on buying a business or want to be a buyer and have financing or access to financing, can you provide a list of potential sellers in the LA market?
We're not brokers. I'm sorry. We our niche is the people who deal with us, like the owners, already know who they want to sell it to. And that's when they come to us. If you've already identified who you think, and you may not be certain, but you say, I think my key employees want to buy it. I think I could sell it to my son if he could get financing. I think I have a key competitor who's talked to me about buying the company. You have self-identified your buyer. We work with brokers all the time, but for what you want as a buyer, you need to go to the brokers who are listing companies, the people that are trying to sell businesses to third parties.
Okay. Question for you. How good would it be to buy a company that has a DOL debt?
What?
A DOL debt,
Department of Labor?
I believe.
Department of, does anybody know what DOL is? I'm sorry.
DOL,
Ruth,
would
I
believe
agree with you. I think it's Department of Labor.
Department of Labor.
A Department of Labor debt? Or what? What
Debt.
debt? A loan from the Department of Labor?
I think this question, as well as the next one, sort of have to do, might be better for brokers, and we're not.
And okay, wonderful, very good. Let's see here. It says, great program. What qualifications does the key employee need to qualify to purchase the business and get financing in terms of credit, collateral, down payment, etc.?
You know, every time I think there's a rule, it gets broken. I would say in general that you're looking for people who have average credit and above, somewhere in the 600 area, 550 to 600. I think below 550, it's often hard to take on new debt. The most important characteristic is that they know the company, that they've worked in the company for years, that's how they got their education. If they have deficiencies, let's say reading balance sheets, or understanding marketing. We'll get them that, we'll beef them up so that they are ready to buy the company. The important thing is that there's an agreement called a letter of intent with your key employees. They want to buy it. It may take us a year, it may take us 2 years to do the transition. In the meantime, we'll shore up whatever deficiencies that employee has. I'd say the overall qualifications for employees to buy a company, that they know the company, they've been successful, they show up on time, they work hard as hell to make the company grow like the owner has, and that they have a sense of ownership about the company. They take pride in the company.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how prevalent are business transitions in the restaurant industry? Which model seems to work best for this sector?
You know, we see a lot of restaurant deals, and here's the issue. Restaurants generally, they could close, but the most important thing about a restaurant tends to be their location. So there's not a lot of chance of them leaving the community and we're losing jobs. It'll probably be purchased by somebody. I'd say that the employee model can work, and we've seen it work very successfully in restaurants, and we're happy to give support and refer those deals to our partners. Certainly our CDFIs do a lot of restaurant lending. When I was at VDC, we had a formula for restaurant lending that worked very successfully. We did a lot of restaurant deals at VDC, but right now Concerned Capital's focus is really more on companies that have jobs at risk for loss, where the county's going to lose those jobs. And restaurants generally don't have a big threat of loss of jobs. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Barbara. What do you think about that in terms of economic development?
I think whatever we can do countywide to help support businesses and keep good jobs here and, create wealth and, create pipelines and career pathways for the businesses and the workers here, we're all for that.
And we help in any way we can too. We try to help, but our focus really has been on manufacturing jobs.
Next question is, does Concerned Capital provide company valuation services for small professional services businesses? Not a manufacturer. Would these also be free service?
We help you understand what goes into a valuation. We show what elements. In other words, a lot of people come to us say, oh, it should be 3 times sales. Well, that's not really how valuation experts look at it. So we school you on the 3 different models, the way that valuation experts come to value. And we show you things on your balance sheet that can make you look stronger. For example, if you've lent money to the company and you have a loan from officer to the company, it can be looked at as equity because you're not demanding that loan be paid back right away. So we show you how to add it back to the equity of your company to make your ratios look better. Things, little tricks like that, we will help you. With. I don't know if that's on point for the question.
Yes.
Does that address it? We get you ready to sell your company. We show you the best ways. Valuation work will help you with a firm estimate. But here's the thing on valuation that I want to emphasize. If you have a buyer and he wants to sign a letter of intent, don't argue for a long time over the value, because if you're going to get a loan, any deal that requires a loan is going to have a valuation expert come in by the bank, and the banks only trust their own valuation experts to come up with value. So if you waste time arguing about the value of the company, it ends up getting defeated when you go for a loan because real value is going to come out anyway. Now, do you have to do the deal at the real value that the bank is willing to lend on? No, but it's like a house loan. If you're way off the mark when you're trying to get a house loan in terms of the value of the house, it's very difficult to get a lender to agree, and it becomes a problem. And I think that valuation, we help people understand how valuations are arrived at. We will give you some estimates for your value, but we are not valuation experts. You cannot take our estimates to court and get, in case there's litigation or something, and we give disclaimers for that. But we will help you understand the key elements so that you can get a better valuation for your company.
Wonderful. Next question. How long does it take to transition a company? Can you do this with a company in crisis?
Yes. Our work with layoff aversion, we had a contract with the city of LA for layoff aversion work, and we had a lot of sudden severe cases where the business was in crisis, threatened to close, They were going to issue a warn notice, those kind of things. And yes, we understand. After the earthquake, De Leon Enterprises was a company that actually filed a bankruptcy. And we had to take it out of the bankruptcy, had to buy it out of the bankruptcy with the employees to do that. So the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, I would say many of the deals that we look at, that's the situation where they don't have time to widely market the company.
Got it. Okay. Next question. What are the down payment requirements for key employees to buy business?
10%. SBA financing allows you to do it for as little as 10% down. And this is something that's not generally known, but I'd like to tip the audience to this. SBA will allow the seller to help you with half that amount. So if it's $1 million company, you need to come up with 100,000. You can come up with 50 grand as the employee, and the owner can take back a note for the other 50 grand. The problem is the owner can't get repaid early. He has to stay in for the term of the SBA loan, and we'll help you overcome those issues and talk about those complications if you work with us for the transition. So the law is 10% for SBA financing, but in fact, you can get it done for as little as 5% down.
Great. Next question. What size company does this work best on? i.e. revenues or employees?
Sales between 1 to 5 million, employees between 20 to 100. I would say companies that have a track record and a history of at least 5 years of successful operation.
Wonderful. Concerned Capital just wanted to let you know that a lot of our viewers are saying that this has been a very promising webinar, very informative. So we're really excited that we've actually done this and had, you as partners, and it's been great. It looks like that is it as far as our questions and answers.
Zita, thank you.
Yes.
So I wanted to emphasize, start with Barbara.
Sure.
Make sure
Barbara.
you get your requests into Barbara, and
Yes.
she'll help us. She'll help us work through all the people that want to get responses. We want no question will go unanswered.
Absolutely. And in fact, I am going to go ahead and put Barbara's information in the chat right now at Barbara. Levine at laedc.org. So if there are any other specific questions, Barbara's our director, and she will go ahead and refer over to Concerned Capital. Again, her email is barbara.lev as in Victor, INE at laedc.org.
Etta, you're amazing. Thank you so much. And please email me. I will be very prompt about, replying back to you and referring you either to Concerned Capital or one of us internally. It's really important when you email us, please include your full contact information, including the name of your business and the address and your phone number, because we need to check the business for, where it's located in terms of a jurisdiction. And we really want to be able to understand your challenges and your opportunities. So when we finally get on the phone with you, we can really have an efficient conversation and help you with your business.
Very good. Wonderful. Thank you very much. This concludes our webinar. Again, thank you, Concerned Capital, for your partnership.
Thank you.
Have a
everyone.
wonderful day, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.